That leads us to the last team that I'm going to talk about, and that's Alabama. Before we get into Alabama, let's get a word from their head coach, who was making the rounds this weekend, even though they weren't playing. Here he is, Nick Saban.
And what I would say to the committee or anyone else is, if we played any of these teams that are on the edge or getting in, would we be the underdog or would we be the favorite? And I think if you can answer that question, and the goal is to get the best teams in, then you would say they belong in there.
Okay, I want to talk about the fact that we, Fox, on the Big Ten Championship, had Nick Saban on at halftime. And there was a lot of talk on social media. By the way, in both regards, because I made, and I'll admit it, somewhat of a snide comment before halftime when I learned that this was going to take place. And then Twitter just blew up once Saban was actually on with the guys at halftime. Let me just say this, and I'm going to state this for everybody so that everybody knows exactly my thoughts. Nick Saban did exactly what he should do. Exactly what he should do. He should be lobbying. He should be presenting the best case for his team. How else do you stand in front of your team in a team meeting and, have their respect unless you're fighting for them? And he did that. And so it's not his fault that we were willing to put him on the air. By the way, we would have put others on the air at Fox. Okay? But Nick Saban took that opportunity to go on and fight for his team. Good for him. And that's exactly what he should do. I want to play for guys like that have my best interest in mind as a player, that want to further our ability to achieve our goals as a team and as an individual. So this is exactly what he should do. Now, I can think that and also disagree with some of the stuff he was saying. Okay, those can be mutually exclusive, right? So he made basically, well, before I get to his points, let me just also say this. The reason I made the snide comment before halftime wasn't because it was Alabama and wasn't because it was Nick Saban. I believe Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach that has ever lived. I believe this dynasty that he has built at Alabama will never be equaled, ever, ever. What he has done at Alabama is totally unprecedented, will never be equaled, and this is the best program in all of college football. Georgia might be the best team for the last 18 months. Alabama's been the best for the last decade and a half. Okay, so this is the preeminent program. I have an immense amount of respect for Alabama and what they do and how they recruit and how they go about their business. Do you know why? Everything is about winning championships, which is exactly what this interview was about. If they want to have the opportunity, it's like, hey, would you take Coach Saban on at halftime? Well, we're a television and entertainment business. We're like, well, absolutely. He's the GOAT. We'll take him. And what's he going to do? Fight for his team. Why? Because that's what Alabama does. They fight for championships. That's why they're in this position where they're the greatest dynasty that we've ever seen in the history of college football. Now, having said that, I hate a system in which any coach for any team has to lobby in a week in which he's not playing. So when I say, and I guess Coach Saban's going to come on and, lobby for his team, I guess. Good for him. It's nothing about Alabama, and it's nothing about Nick Saban. It's about the system. The system sucks in a lot of regards, right? So, I can be totally, have total disdain for a system that allows for lobbying and not have disdain for a program. In a lot of ways, I love Alabama. They're the Michael Jordan of the modern era of college football. I love greatness. We all should love greatness. Why? Because no one can be great unless they look at something and say, I want to be like that. Someone has to set the bar of expectation, and Alabama has done that. Having said all of that, so my genuine feelings out there, all you Tide fans that think I hate the Tide, couldn't be further from the truth. Have immense amount of respect for the Tide and Nick Saban. I disagree with his 3 points that he made in the interview. Let me just go through the 3. Number one, he brings up, like you heard in the clip, Vegas. All right, well, I'm sorry, but I believe he was an 8-point favorite against LSU, right? And that didn't prevent them from losing that game. So that's just not an argument. I understand he's trying to fit it in the box of we're just taking the 4 best. But as I told you before in the show, there is a gray area, and we know there's a gray area. Okay? So you can't just say Vegas, Vegas, Vegas. I'm sorry. That's not how this works. Why would we play any game if we were just going to go by the metric of Vegas? Then he started to talk about the losses. And yes, they were close losses to good opponents in really tough environments. But do you really want to live in a world in which the main argument that you would use as a team to get into the playoff is, hey, our losses are great? Now, I don't love that world either. I don't think anybody does. Wouldn't you much rather say, okay, what did you do rather than what did you not do? So what did you do? Well, you didn't beat a team that was ranked any higher than Texas. TCU also beat that Texas team. They also beat Kansas State earlier in the year. Ohio State also beat Penn State on the road. You get what I'm saying here, right? So like you're chipping away at these and you're like, is Vegas really a metric? Well, absolutely not. Do you really want to live in a world where we're just saying my losses are great? Clearly not. And you had 2 of them, by the way, and the other teams only had 1. And then the last one, he talked about the injuries to his team. TCU is basically playing with their backup quarterback all year, Coach Saban. I know he played great, but he wasn't the starter initially. So could you be doing this with Bryce Young's backup for the entirety of the season? By the way, the Biletnikoff favorite and maybe best player in college football at the beginning of the season was Jackson Smith and Jigba, which Ohio State has not had for the entirety of the season. You get my drift, right? So like that excuse only goes so far. Did Nick Saban do exactly what he should do? Absolutely. Do I disagree with his argument? Yes. Yes, I do.